Hey, JAZBEAR. I have another one of Great Grandma's stories. One from your great grandma about your great grandma and great yeah. Oh my gosh, so many. You figure it out. I can't figure it out. You're good at that. This one I think you're gonna really enjoy. It's called The Ham Sandwich. I don't think I will ever look at a ham sandwich without thinking about the ham sandwich. I guess I should set the scene before starting this story. Otherwise, you'll not understand why the ham sandwich meant what it did. Let's go back to my home, which was 7.5 miles from the big town of Hope, Arkansas. You drove till just before the store, which had a gas pump in front, and you made a right turn onto a dirt road. At the end of this dirt road sat my home. We're going to have to check that out sometime. I never did see your great-grandma's home. I never saw it. Now I know the directions. By today's standards, we were very poor, but that didn't make a difference to anyone my age, because being poor had certain privileges that rich people didn't have. I got to go to school barefoot, and I could walk through the mud with it squishing between my toes. Now that is only a couple of things I could do that no self-respecting rich kid could do. Most of the other people around were about as rich as I was, so most kids wore no shoes and enjoyed the special times in their lives. There was no TVs. And since there was no electricity, we listened to a battery-powered radio. I used to listen to stories after we listened to the news. You listened to the news because you wanted to know what was going on in the world, other than the little world you lived in. Some of the stories were scary. And that's when you snuggled up in bed with a cat at your feet. One next to you and one above your head. I did like those cats during that time, as I was a real scared little girl. I'm getting off my story, so now I will return to it. Your great-grandpa made the best biscuits you ever tasted, except for your great-grandpa's. Now there was a biscuit that would melt in your mouth. We bought maybe one loaf of bread a year, and what a treat that was. My dad worked in town, and he'd bring home this loaf of bread, and I'd take 3 pieces and smash them all together and eat them. They tasted like cake to me, even better. I never tasted a sandwich made with bread. Wow. I would smash my bread for a treat. Your great-grandma would make biscuits and put melted bacon drippings on top. So you know when you fry the bacon and they have all that fat there? She'd pour that on biscuits. And then sprinkle sugar on top of that. Just to think of it makes my mouth water for some. Back to the story. Your great-grandfather was a very hard-working man, and worked as he may, he always seemed to be $1 short. He farmed, worked as a mechanic, drove the school bus, was justice of the peace, that means he could marry people, and helped give shots to the livestock, which means the animals, he gave them their shots, and still didn't make much money. Everyone was going through hard times back then. A big war had really hurt the country, and jobs weren't there for all the men. Your grandmother's grandpa knew he was the best mechanic ever, so he talked to his wife, who was your great-grandmother, and they decided Grandpa would borrow $100 from the lady at the store and go to California. Ooh, $100. $100, and they were going to move from Arkansas to California on $100. Wow. He would work, and as soon as he had the money to pay back the store lady, and send for us to join him, he would. When he left, it broke my heart. We still lived on your great-great-great-grandfather's land, and your great-great-great-grandmother had food cans so we wouldn't go hungry. I loved white gravy, which is made from milk, and my brother loved brown gravy, which doesn't have milk. My mom would ask, "What do you want to eat?" We'd always say white and brown gravy, so she would make a big pan of biscuits, and we'd have biscuits and gravy. We had that for a whole week and never realized we didn't have much else. We thought it was a big treat. Wow! It was like a holiday to us. My brother and I were still in school, and each day except Saturday and Sunday, we'd go off to school and my mom would stay home and take care of my little sister. It sure seemed like my dad was gone a long time. But after a month, my daddy had saved enough to send the grocery lady her money and tickets on the train for Mom, brother, and my sister, and myself. We couldn't take the cats and dog, but homes were found for them, and my mom began to pack. Out came the trunk, and it was filled with blankets, sheets, pillowcases, pots and pans, and everything that we could take that we would need when we got there. The last thing she did was bake up biscuits, and in those biscuits she put pork, and she fried the last of the chickens, and there was homemade jam and a gallon of milk. All this went into a large box that would stay with us on the trip, as we didn't have any more money, so this would have to do. We boarded the train with my brother carrying the box of food, my mom carrying my little sister, who was not yet 2 years old. I carried diapers and a blanket for the baby, and whatever was handed to me. We found our seats and the train began to move. I was really scared, but my mom was there, so I guessed it would be safe. As I got tired of looking at the trees and things go by the windows, I began to look around at other things near me inside the train. I discovered my mom, brother, sister, and myself were the only family in the train car. All the other seats were filled with soldiers, and they looked very tired. Some of them were sleeping as if they had not slept in a very long time. Some woke up as this man came through the train car with a funny box connected to a sling. In this box were funny-looking sandwiches made of what we called light bread. I didn't know what it was then as he came through, but the soldiers started to pay money and each got sandwiches. I asked my mom for one, and she replied, "No." Now, in my time of youth, a no meant just that, and you didn't ask anymore. The soldiers heard me ask and offered to buy me any amount of sandwiches I wanted. My mom thanked them and said, "No, thank you." I think I learned about a thing called pride at this time. That's all we had was pride. We had no money. It took days to get to California. At night we'd sit up or try to curl up in the seats and sleep. It was so long for little ones to travel, and every so often the man with the funny box would come through, and now he'd yell for all to hear, "Ham sandwiches for sale, only 40 cents each." I wanted one of them sandwiches so bad, and each time some soldier would look at me and I'd just smile and say, "No, thank you." We got to a place called Los Angeles and had to change trains, so each of us gathered up our share of belongings and got off the train. There was a huge waiting room with long wooden benches to sit on while you waited to catch a train or wait for someone to pick you up. The box with the food was disposed of as it was empty by now. My brother had to use the bathroom, and he was gone a long time. My mom was beginning to think he was lost, or one of the funny-sounding people speaking a language we couldn't understand had stolen him. Oh, wow. Just at this time, here came my brother. He stuttered really bad when he was a little boy, and he said, Ma, they charged a dime to use the bathroom." And he certainly didn't have a dime. Wow. my brother quickly said, stuttering all the way through. That's all right, Mama. I just waited till someone left and I crawled under the door. Good thinking. So much for modern plumbing and a little boy needing to use the bathroom. I think there is a saying that goes, where there is a will, there's a way, and it certainly fit this time and situation. Finally announced over the loudspeaker that our train was ready. This would be the last 259 miles of the trip. We shared all the belongings and got aboard the train. I settled down watching the trees go by and an occasional house or animal. I paid little attention when the man with the funny boxes came around and yelled, "Ham sandwiches for sale, only 40 cents. I heard a familiar voice say, "Mister, I'll take 2 of those sandwiches and 2 Dr. Pepper soda pops." I couldn't believe my ears as my mom dug down in a warm purse to fish out the precious little money we had to buy me this treat. The man gave me the sandwich and I quickly opened the wrappings to see the beautiful white bread inside. See, never saw that before. There was the thinnest slice of ham you've ever seen. I looked at my mom smiling at me, and I knew I was safe, really safe, because my mom really was taking care of me with love, and that's the best kind of safe. The ham was thin, the bread white, and a slap of mayonnaise. It was a dream sandwich. I will never have a better sandwich, because along with ham, mayonnaise, and bread came a sacrifice and a love of a mother. Mothers are like that. I can remember the times my mom would not eat her share of a pie or a cake, but would say she was too full, and we could have her share. We'd gobble it up, never thinking she might really want it for herself. Now my mom is 82 years young. Her skin is wrinkled and she walks a little slower. But if you look in those beautiful eyes and see that fabulous smile, you'll see the lady I call Mama. And if you were me, you'd remember the sacrifices she made. She always used to say, "I wish I had given you more when you were growing up." How could she? She gave everything she had. And that's all you can give. I only hope someday my children can say she gave us all she had. I smile and I think, I can give you material things, my darlings, but I can never give you a real ham sandwich like my mom gave me. That, my darlings, is the story of the ham sandwich. It's all true. You're lucky to call that wonderful lady great-great-grandma. She truly is great. Well, she said she was 82. Her mom was 82 in this one, but she actually passed away when she was in her 90s. So she lived to be very old. This reminds me of this story of a sandwich reminds me of my mom and reminds me of your Mama Sarah too. Why? Because it involves a sandwich and a mom. When your Mama Sarah was really little, she was probably about, I don't know, 3 or 4, something like that. And I made a sandwich for her and your Uncle Will. And I gave it to them and they sat there eating, and your Uncle Will went to go do something, and so did I. And when your Uncle Will came back, your Mama Sarah was sitting there eating her sandwich. So Uncle Will looked around and was ready to sit down, and he looked at the table. He said, "My sandwich is gone." And I go, "Your sandwich is gone? Did you put it somewhere?" And he goes, "No, I don't know. I didn't. I left it right here." So I said, "Well, look around." So we looked everywhere, and he asked his sister, "Do you know where the sandwich is?" And I don't really remember this too well, but I think she said, I think she just kept eating her sandwich. I don't think he really even asked her. I think he just looked for his sandwich. And your mama just kept eating her sandwich, and she was really little. He walks over to Mama Sarah and me, and he says, what happened to my sandwich?" To Mama Sarah. And Mama Sarah, she didn't say anything. And he said, "Did my sandwich go on a magical journey?" And she said, "Yep. His sandwich went on a magical journey, all right. He walked over to the trash can, opened up the trash can, and his sandwich was in the trash can. That was the magical journey that his sandwich went on, which I didn't put it in the trash can. He says he didn't put it in the trash can, and there was only one other person in the room who could have put it on a magical journey to the trash can. And that person was a very little tiny little girl, which happened to be your mama." That was so funny. Even when we grew up, we laughed about it, and when something would happen, sometimes we'd say to her, "Did it go on a magical journey?" And sometimes she would just sit there and laugh, and she thought it was funny, just hilarious, because I don't think she even remembered doing it. She was so little. Just, you know, now that I think of it, you know what I think she was doing? I think he left the table, he wasn't eating it anymore, and so she cleaned up. I think that's exactly what she did, because she was used to seeing me cleaning up, used to watching me clean stuff, and I think she just, in her head, thought, well, it's time to clean the table, and she just cleaned up the table and never thought that she did anything wrong. We didn't get mad at her. It was actually really funny. I don't think he left the table anymore without bringing his sandwich with him or finishing his food, because he didn't want it to go on any more magical journeys. I hope you like that story. I love you, JAZBEAR. Yay.